social media, not the final frontier. Our continuing mission to engage strange new platforms, seek out new people, new experiences, to boldly go where we have not gone before. And over to you, Miss Sarah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek Zap. And that was just a taste of our fabulous guest, Ben Fisher, today. And we're going to be talking about marketing, sales, and your business page on Google+. So welcome, Zapsters. Welcome, everyone who's new. And Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself. And, of course, that includes Steady Demand.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Thanks, Sarah, so much for having me on the show. Well, a little bit about me. I guess internet marketing since 1994, helping businesses succeed online, and more importantly, helping them try to figure out how to get return on investment, which is extremely difficult today, with all the noise that's out there. But Steady Demand itself, we have tools that we have, but more importantly, I think it's the services that we offer that provide the most value. And that's where we help businesses actually grow their followers, get engagement on their brand pages, do HOAs, kind of like this. But all with goals, objectives, and return on investment in mind. And yeah, that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Oh, that's great. And yesterday you did this surprise article, which was just wonderful, leading up to today's show. So I thought we could go through the various types of engagers as found on Star Trek.
Absolutely. And you know what? I want to give a big, excuse me, I've got to find something here really quick. Big shout out to Vivek, because Vivek was the inspiration for this. He came in there and he was talking about our last show. We were talking about shirtless, shoeless fans. And he's like, hey, so is there going to be any Star Trek in this one? I was like, you know what? Yeah, there is going to be some Star Trek in this one. So, so basically, just took every Star Trek, original, not everyone, but Star Trek character, and said, well, let's look at their personalities and how would they behave as social marketers in today's world. And so, let's start off. When we're working in social media, we're always exploring new frontiers, and sometimes sometimes when we jump in, we're red shirts. We go in, we fail miserably, we die, or we feel like we're dead because nothing's happening. We're not getting any kind of engagement. There is no ROI that we can see at the moment. Sometimes we feel like we're Kirk, Chekhov, Spock, and I think all of us have a little bit of at least 3 of these kind of character personalities within us when we're kind of embarking on our journeys. So let's go ahead and kind of just do a really quick, brief overview. So here we go. We've got Chekhov. And no sign of engagement at last report in a Facebook page at a very primitive level. And Chekhov is very trajectory oriented. He really balances everything he does kind of continuously. He looks at the data, and he's constantly talking to Spock saying, so how are the engagement and the sales doing? But he's constantly in rebalancing his efforts. Next, we've got Kirk. Okay, we all love Kirk. Kirk, fire everything we've got. Engage. Very shooting off the hip and very reactionary, albeit successful, very reactionary, but there's kind of no real plan. It's very loose. I feel like Kirk a lot sometimes, personally. Okay, so I can relate to that. I can also relate to Chekhov. Next up, we've got McCoy. So he's not your long-term engager. He's looking to fix a problem right now, today, and it basically looks at the sales cycle more as something that is a little bit lower of priority. So maybe starts out with one engagement, does a secondary engagement, boom, done. Off to triage the next thing. I think we all feel like that sometimes, right? Then we have Scotty. I think a lot of people do relate to Scotty, and we're going to be bringing up a poll here really soon that kind of shows that actually data-wise. And Scotty, he builds his engagement using a mix of different approaches, whether it be Pinterest, Twitter, LinkedIn, opt-in guides, talking to people directly, making posts, reposting, pinning those posts, using LinkedIn to build leads, and making it kind of all work together. But I think the most important thing is he looks at the trends and he leverages his experience to continue basically building on that success. Next up, we've got our dearly beloved Leonard Nimoy, Spock. Rest in peace. And for Spock, there's an end game, and that's actually where he starts. And in social media, that can, of course, be bad. Because if you're looking to go for the throat or throw the Vulcan death grip on somebody immediately versus a mind meld, we're missing out a lot. So, overthinking it and kind of just going for the gut, that doesn't really work very well in social sales. It doesn't work well in relationships either. And then finally, we've got Hora. Hora is a total 100% social listener. She's on Hootsuite, Sprout Social all day long. She's listening, but she's really not concerned about the analysis of what's going on. It's just kind of like, okay, hey, great, we've got some brands talking about us. Customer service, will you please go ahead and reply to this? Or sales, hey, that looks like a lead. So, the question is she really spending her time wisely? And yeah, so that's kind of the case of the characters that we have, or that I drew up from Star Trek really quick last night. Again, thanks, Vivek.
Yes, thank you, Vivek. It's so fun, Ben, and I just want to encourage the audience members to ask your questions about the different characters, and tell us where you are. As Ben says, there are probably at least three of them in each of us. So maybe you can give us an idea of which three are you. And while we're waiting for some posts, let's take a look at the poll that you put up this morning. I hope everybody went to the poll.
Sure. Let me go ahead and bring it up. So far, it looks like we've got about 17 voters. So it looks like we have a lot of Scotties in the audience that believe in the holistic marketing. And there looks like we've got a decent number of Kirks in the audience as well, kind of shooting off the hip and being more reactionary. I remember there was one comment this morning actually on the poll where somebody said, hey, you know what, I am a Kirk. I need to be more like a Scotty. And, so that was cool. And there's some people who feel like they're a Spock. They're looking definitely towards the end goal. And a couple of you people who feel like they're a Chekhov. Not too many though. And nobody feels like they're in a Hora. That's kind of interesting. So if you haven't gone ahead and voted on the poll, go for it. And we'll see at the end of the show if the numbers have changed at all.
Yeah, we're gonna bring the poll back up at the end of the show. So if you haven't voted, make sure you go. It's in the comment stream. Click that link. Go vote. And Ben, I have a question for you. It's like, whatever our style or our combined styles of being on social media and working social media, especially to bring people to our business page. It leads to a whole other section, and that is, so great, we got them there on the business page and we have them engaging. So, but how do we get the sale? I think that's the bottom line. That's the Spock question.
How do we get to the gamma?
I
Forget
know.
alpha and beta. And I think it's different for every business. Um, Not to sideline the question, but it is different from every business. And in the two plus years that we've been working with brands on G Plus, we've worked with verticals that range from lawyers to insurance companies to hotels to big mega enterprises that have been around for over 200 years. And I think one of the common things that we find is that I would say 80% of the time, most people don't know how to track their sales in the first place. And that's a big problem just in itself. And when we're working with Google Plus, it's also very difficult to do tracking on sales, even if you're using like a shortened link. I was just having a phone call actually with a client actually about 10 minutes before we hopped into the green room. And it was his exact question so how can I track sales from Google Plus? And I had to explain that, we use a bit.ly shortening link because we want to track the clicks. But unfortunately, sorry to get techie, but what's called the refer, which Google Analytics picks up as the source in Google Analytics, gets stripped out whenever you're using a shortened link. So it doesn't show Google Plus as the source. So I had to tell them straight up, if you're looking to see direct sales coming from specifically Google Plus, you're going to be disappointed. So, but to now come back and directly answer your questions. Since we're almost 15 minutes into this, I'm going to actually share some stats first. Okay? I promise I will answer the question. All right. So one customer case study. I can't. Let's see. They do. They basically do counseling. Is what they do. It's kind of like an online course, and it costs a lot of money actually to get into this course. So using the technique that we kind of train them on, which is called I call the added back opportunity. There's a blog post on Steady Demand actually that kind of discusses what the added back opportunity is. But by communicating with people who have added you back, what he was able to do in 1 month, okay, was have a conversation. He was able to reach out to 150 followers. Out of those 150 followers, he ended up having 50 real conversations. And what I mean a real conversation is that he's asked an open-ended question to somebody who looks like, he's looked at their profile. And by the way, this does answer your question. He's looked at their profile. He's qualified them as somebody who might be a candidate for what he does. And he's asked them an open-ended question. And that open-ended question could be something as simple as, I noticed that you work for X. What do you think of Y? Or where's your career heading? I'm just very curious to get to know you more. So something that brings it down to that very personal level. Because like we were talking about also in the green room, it's a difference between sales and marketing, right? Even though we're doing marketing at the same time, because that's just one more person that's heard our name, we're really doing sales at this point. And bonus tip, if you can uncover pain points, which I'll get to in a second, that can actually help your sales and marketing efforts also in the future, even if that person doesn't convert. So back to the case study, 150 followers, 50 conversations. Conversation to me qualifies as 2 to 3 responses at least. And then going in for not the Spock death grip, but more of the mind meld of, hey, by the way, since you are interested in this, you might want to check this out. Of course, don't say check this out, but you know what I mean. And what ended up with those, so that's a 33% conversion rate to a conversation, okay? But out of that 33%, he actually ended up getting 5 real leads where somebody said, oh my God, this is something that I've been looking for. And this is what I want, and I want this. So it's not a push, it's a pull kind of sale. And that's 10% to a qualified lead. So imagine if you could every single day get 10% of the people who are following you to turn into qualified leads. How would that radically change your life? How would that radically change your business? And I guess that's the real point, is that it can be done. It can not only can be done on Google Plus, but I mean this can be done on Twitter, this can be done on Facebook, this can be done on LinkedIn. It's just different styles, and different types of communities. I'll give you one more case study, and that one is actually from us, steady demand. So what I tried to do is I said, okay, so every single day I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to respond to every person who adds us back, basically. So we follow some targeted people that we want to connect with, and if they add us back, they're showing intent, they're showing interest. Because we can only follow 5,000 people, right, or brands. So they must be interested in something. And so anyway, so I did that. And so basically my averages kind of came out to this. Out of on average, about 50 messages to people who have added us back, I would send out 2 calls to actions in 1 mention. Okay, so I wanted to get both conversations done at the same time. But I also wanted to measure the response rate that I would get if I was sending out 2 CTAs. Because traditional marketing says you use 1 CTA so that way you don't confuse the user, right? Confuse somebody. So I got back, and this was kind of really cool. So the ones that I asked the question, I ended up, so out of the 50, I ended up getting on average, about 5 responses. That's awesome. That's a 10% conversion rate, and something that I can start using to measure pain points and measure desires and needs, because I had actually asked 3 questions in that call to action. And that is what do you worry about the most when you wake up about Google Plus the business? What are your fears when it comes to Google Plus? And what are your dreams when it comes to Google Plus? If you can get those 3 answers from any business about whatever your business is about, if you can get those 3, you can kill it when it comes to sales, because now you know what their hopes, fears, and dreams are. And
that's just really great. And I want to interrupt you for a minute because we're getting some responses. So Roxanne Davenport says, I'm Captain Kirk, fly by the seat of my pants. And Peter Hatherley says, whoops, I'm with you. The word holistic attracted me to it. So there you go, 1 word from our word minstrel. And David F. Leopold says, just voted. Am I holistic? And I've got so many here. And Wiwick says, I did. I'm with Scotty, but probably for the wrong reason. Tell us your wrong reason, Wiwick. And then earlier on, David Leopold, I just wanted to give you this feedback. David Leopold says, great graphics, Ben Fisher, and I have to agree.
I got them all off a meme generator. I'm sorry. But thank you, David.
Yeah, and
they are quotes actually from Star Trek episodes, though.
And then right now, Wiwick says, I agree. If you can get 16% people to convert, you have reached the tipping point, as per Simon Sinek. So when you do that, you are onto something really, really big. Make sure you are ready for a mega success. I agree, Ben Fisher.
Getting ready, that's a whole nother HOA.
It is, isn't it? It
Yeah.
is. But I have to, I'm listening because I'm listening really hard because I'm managing a business page for an organization, and we have been getting responses, and we've been getting responses through just the technique that you said. For
through the added back opportunity?
Yeah, for everyone who follows the page, boomo, they get a message right away. And with a question, asking them about, what they're doing, asking them to tell us more information. So then we get them, and then we've had those funnel to the actual thing that that business offers. So I just want to say it's a really terrific technique.
Thank you. You try the hopes, fears, and dreams technique as well,
I like
and
that.
and see what your percentage conversion rate comes off of that, and then use that and kind of to leverage basically your marketing, whether it be ads or conversations, etc. Understand. I think it's about understanding your customer. We all talk about building about buyer personas, and we talk about listening to our customers. At the end of the day, we're really busy. And how many small businesses really take the time to build a buyer persona? I work with companies that have 2 people in them. I have worked with companies that have 10,000 people in them. And I've seen companies that have over 1,000 employees, and they've never built a buyer persona, or a company persona for that fact. So think of this as your kind of easy way to build a buyer persona. Take the responses, segment them out onto an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, and start looking for the patterns. It doesn't take that much time. It's copy paste. Throw it into Evernote if you have to.
I've got some more responses. I'm going to bring a couple up. Dave Pipe says, definitely, Scotty, if the holistic method doesn't work, you can always use a sledgehammer. And David Leopold says, 10% conversion is wonderful, Ben Fisher. Personally, I don't want to be that busy.
For your foundation, you definitely do, David. Actually, let me touch on that point really quick about busy, because one thing I think that's important to understand is that this does take a lot of work.
It does.
It takes a tremendous amount of work. So going in there, the way I do it is that I copy and paste. I'll be straight up about that. I copy and paste. I have 3 different variants, actually, that I send out, and then I test those as well. But copying it, documenting it, all of it takes a lot of work and can get very overwhelming if you have a successful page. Now, on average, most brand pages are lucky if they get 20 to 100 followers in a couple months. Our clients, we end up finding, what we end up doing actually is we end up growing their pages by more than 500 per month on average. So think about that, and having to respond to 500 people every single month. Now, with the conversion rate, it makes sense, right? But like David's saying, he doesn't want to be that busy. So if you're going to do it at the moderation that feels comfortable for you. You know your business, you know your operations, you know your customers, you know how much time that you can invest into something like this. So adjust it. Find out what that, basically we want to be like Scotty, actually, in this case. We want to do it, measure the response, and then adjust accordingly. And so that way you don't get overwhelmed.
Ben, we have a definition question from Glenn Jewett. He asks, is a conversion a sale?
No, and yes. So that's why I was going back to the state of demand, why I was calling things conversions. So with the added back opportunity, just to refresh, I was talking about 2 types of calls to action, which both I consider, in a sense, not necessarily a sale because it's not income. One's asking a question, that's a conversion, and the other one was to go download our opt-in guide. And the downloading the opt-in guide is actually a conversion, but it's not a sale. It's something that leads a person further along this whole sales path. I definitely say if you don't have an opt-in guide or something that people can, where you can get their email address, you're missing a very large piece of the puzzle. Because you start with the conversation, then you get somebody to do something, then it becomes a sale. And it becomes a sale when it's right for kind of both parties. Yeah, no Vulcan death grips.
Right. And then Roxanne has a comment. Roxanne Davenport, she says, I say with fundraising, you don't know what you will get unless you ask.
Yep, that's extremely true. But yeah, so I guess it all, going back to the question, it depends on how you're looking at, how you define what is considered a sale. Do I consider an opt-in a sale? I don't, because it's not adding money to the bottom line of my business. It's not putting money in the pocket of the people who work for me. For my customers, again, it's not putting money in their pockets. It's just kind of a lead at that point. So I think a true conversion depends on how you define it.
Okay, that was a great answer. And then we have from Denver Prophet Jr. Are you asking this question? Add them back via private share, Hangout, chat, or email.
Great question, Denver. With the added you back opportunity, it's actually working through when in the plus mention area, upper right hand corner, when somebody you get the message of has added Denver Prophet Jr. has added you back, and then actually just clicking on the say hello button and sending a private message, basically, not Hangout, not email. And the reason for that psychologically is because I don't know you. Why in the world are you going to try and hang out with me? You don't know me. So if I try and hang out with you, it's very intrusive. It's extremely intrusive. The added you back is so passive. You have no idea why somebody has added you back. So that's why I use the private message as the way to communicate. Also, that tells you a little bit about the education level of the person that you're responding to. So they might not have notifications turned on. They might not have notifications that go into their into their email. So you don't know what their user settings are. So that's why I use the plus mentioning back.
I have to agree. It's just, I know for me that seems to be the trail that I follow. And then Glenn Jewett says the first rule of good selling is discipline.
Agreed. And on discipline, so what I recommend to our new clients when they're first starting up the page is basically, so I say, segment out 1 hour of either your day or somebody who works for you, their day, half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening. Respond to plus mentions as needed, basically. Again, that goes kind of back to the whole getting overwhelmed type of scenario, because it requires discipline. And because if you're doing it all day long, guess what? Your job is social media all day long, and you're not getting done what you need to get done in your core business. So your business is going to suffer. While you might be getting some conversions that are coming back, you don't know if they're going to lead to sales. So you need to focus on I think at least, you need to focus on what is going to convert from my business today. And this is something we're adding on that's kind of new, right? So let's play with it and we'll adjust. And if you do those 2 half-an-hour segments, or even 15-minute segments, depending on how many messages you get, then you start to see success and you're like, oh, yippee, I got a sale. Awesome. Well, maybe I should do a little bit more of this, or maybe be even smarter and delegate it to somebody. Teach them what you've learned. Show them how you want to record the data so you can keep an eye on it, and then continue to expand it and continue to grow it, because it becomes a machine almost at that point. It isn't. Sales and marketing is a numbers game. It really is. If you think about cold calling, right? Cold calling it's a number game. How many people can I dial today? How many people are going to hang up on me today? How many people are going to say yes today? How many people are going to say no? How the heck did you hear about me today? So, how many people are going to piss me off? No. And how many people am I going to help? So, but anyway, yeah, absolutely.
I want to bring up Tim Longwell's comment, because I think it applies to a lot of folks. Tim says, I feel I am somewhere between Kirk and Scotty, leaning a bit more toward to Kirk. I know I should develop a social media strategy, yet somehow can't seem to want to bother to set one.
I can relate to that. I can relate to that, and I think a lot of people can. And that's because we don't know what the outcome is going to be. It's a new frontier. It's scary. We don't know if we're wasting our time and our energy on it, and we might not be comfortable with what the results are because we might not know if we're going about it the right way. Maybe we've read the ultimate guide to X, but how do we know that that is the ultimate guide? Because we haven't actually experienced it yet. So I think it's very natural as people to say, all right, I'm excited. This is cool. I just read about this. I'm going to go do it. And, you know, and then when we start doing it and we don't see the kind of results that we've put tongue-tied, the expectations that we've put on ourselves, when we don't see them met, then we feel lost. And, you know, and maybe even want to abandon what we're doing and kind of, you know, turn back, you know, time to head home to the Federation. So I think that setting your own expectations is definitely important. But I also think, and me myself, I'm still very weak at this too, is I think that a strategy is necessary. And putting together a strategy, I think, in pieces can work. Specifically if you're not a very strategic person, you know, so say I'm going to create an opt-in guide. I'm going to create a routine, something that's sustainable. I'm going to measure things. I'm going to put all these little pieces in place and throw them up on a whiteboard, you know, or draw them on a piece of paper. How do they kind of all tie together? And that way, you know, you can feel very comfortable kind of in your strategy. And then you can be like Scotty, and you can start to measure and really see what works and what doesn't.
That's great. And then Peter Hazley is following up on what you just said. He says, great point, Spin Fisher. Google Plus involvement requires some definitive planning so that profitability doesn't suffer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so planning, you know, I don't care if it's a piece of butcher paper, you know, we just, you know, map it out in some way. And I have this theory that when you have that piece of paper, that visual, or the whiteboard, or whatever it is that you use, it's the starting point for growing, because you're looking at this thing and you say, okay, I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and then over here I'm doing this and I'm doing this, but there's this big, you know, nothing right here in the middle. And so it really helps to visualize. I like big thingies when I'm, you know, planning out a strategy. So you can actually see the physical space on that piece of paper or your whiteboard or whatever it is, and it's like, I've got this part and I've got this part, but I really need to work on this part here in the middle. It really helps visualize. That's just me. And then Wewek says, collaborate to expand. Get someone to do what you are not good at. Yes. And that way you can build a tribe. Once you cross 15% conversion, you have a collaborative effort that can handle the success. What do you say to that, Ben Fisher?
I agree. I agree. And just to expand on that, Vivek, succinctly actually, is that as business owners, you know, we need to focus on our strengths and not our weaknesses. And that goes the same for the people that work together with us. You know, depending, of course, on your age, right? But for the most part, when you become an entrepreneur, you're set in your strengths and your weaknesses. And yes, absolutely, collaboration with other people, whether they be employees or other businesses, complementary businesses, even the whole co-opetition, working together with your competition. Absolutely. Yeah, that's all I can say to that, Vivek.
Okay, and then I just want to remind everybody, if you haven't done the poll, go do it now because we're going to bring it up here in just a couple of minutes. And then Shell O'Connell has a question, Ben, and I'm really not sure about this, so Shell, you may need to elaborate a little. Ben Fisher, could you share the open-ended question again?
Yes, I could. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to bring up the poll here really quick. Um, yeah, absolutely, Shell. Um, yes, the open-ended questions is when you wake up in the morning, what is the biggest, I'm sorry, fears, hopes, and dreams. So what's your biggest hope for X? What is your biggest fear when it comes to X? And what is your biggest dream? And those three questions will give you as much business intelligence as you need.
Okay, oh my goodness, we have so many comments coming in. Carmen says, Carmen Rojas, one thing I see that people may be watching, but they are measuring the wrong thing. For example, they equate the effectiveness of their social media on how many likes they have, not if those likes convert. Boy,
Yeah, oh boy, we could talk about that one all day long. Let's bring in Dustin and David Kutcher on this one. Yeah, that's the difference right there between social proof and social effectiveness. You know, and or actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. Social proof and vanity is more like it, because you might have 1 million followers that have given you 10 million likes, or on GPlus, 10 million views. But if they haven't converted into something, or whether that be a meaningful relationship or something that, again, affects the business bottom line, then they mean nothing. They're vaporware. That's all they are. They're just numbers. I remember when Christine DeGraff, did an article comparing Bandit to some very high-profile people and taking a look at the engagement that they were getting versus a dog. And,
we were just here and we looked at that, and it was Bandit rocked it.
Exactly. So yeah. So I mean, it comes down to is that I mean, I don't care how many likes you got. If it's not striking if there's not an engagement going on that is a real engagement, and I guess backing that up to a real engagement is a conversation. It's getting to know somebody. Then you're kind of just spinning your wheels.
Yeah, it's so true. We're coming to the end of our time. I'm going to do this one last statement from Tim Longwell, and then we'll take a look at the poll. So Tim says, exactly, Ben Fisher, along with not knowing how it will come out, I also struggle with what is the right way for what I do, since I am not sure what I would use as an opt-in reward, especially since what I do is more feeling visual production rather than mental technical. Well, I think that's really a great point, Tim, because I would say that applies not only to visual artists, but also to people who are into any kind of coaching, where there's no physical something.
Correct. So, Tim, get in contact with me after the show. That's one thing I'll say. I can kind of help you, guide you down that path, because there's a lot more questions that need to be asked. But, if, like, for instance, a great example is a web designer that's one of our clients. And started out with 20 followers. Now he's coming close on to 3,000 followers. His engagement is through the roof. He puts out a post and his followers they talk. But he's a web designer. He's not selling a product. He's selling a service, which, like you, is very visually oriented. And his return is that he gets leads. He gets people that want to hire him for web design and social media types of services. Because he's found out those hopes, those dreams, those fears, and he's talked to people and addressed those kind of things. And he's very representative of that on his page. And he does it as a person. I mean, it's a brand page, but he does it as a person. And so it can be done. I say it can be done for almost any industry. What I do say is reality check is that not every business is going to get thousands upon thousands of followers. If you are a barber located out of Colorado, your target limit might be 10,000, 100,000 people, whatever the population of Colorado is currently, right? And only a percentage of those are going to be on a social media platform. So again, setting your expectations very realistically early on is very important to help you kind of keep your energy up while you're still doing it all.
Ben, I can't thank you enough for all your wisdom. It's really wonderful. I know all of us struggle with, marketing and engaging with the right people and really creating interest in what we do on a very sincere level, not ethereal. I don't know how to put it, but a very sincere level, and working with that sincerity with our clients. So I want to thank you very much. And so now let's do the poll and definitely tell people some more about steady demand because it's just so wonderful.
All right, so looking back to the poll. Okay, so what do we got here? So nobody sees them as Uhura, just listening and passing off the buck. Thanks, David. Sorry, my IAM came up. I'll get to that in a minute, buddy. So 23% do feel like they are Spock. Okay. 20%. Wow, that's actually gone down by 3%, by the way. 3% you feel like 20% feel like they are Kirk. They don't have a plan. Okay, well, cool. Start. Make a plan, even if it's just Google Plus. 53% feel very aligned with Scotty. They feel like they've got a very nice coordinated plan of attack and that they're going to analyze the results and move forward. So that's actually, I believe that's increased by a couple percentage points. And whoa, if I remember correctly, checkoff was in the 20% when we started. So yeah, checkoff has gone down to 3%. So thanks everybody for voting. That was awesome.
That was a great poll. That was a great poll because just by answering the question, it required at least a modicum of introspection.
And I want to thank actually Mike Alton because I didn't even think about it last night when I was putting together the post, and he shouted me out this morning. He's like, "You should put together a poll about this," and I was like, "That would be kick butt for this app." So let's do that.
It is. So tell people a little bit more about steady demand. Because we're just another tip of the iceberg today with you, Ben. So tell us some about steady demand.
Steady demand, we help you figure out with your business how to grow basically your Google Plus presence. We help you manage your brand page if that's what you need, excuse me. And we do it in a very strategic way that is relevant to your specific business. And we do it with an ROI and objective and realistic goals in mind. And my call to action actually today is, if you have not engaged with Steady Demand, is to follow us on Google+, LinkedIn, Twitter if you'd like, and also is to grab our free guide. So in our free guide, it's basically a page manager's guide to Google+. Shows you how to set things up technically correct, and also just kind of how to get all Google Analytics all set up and everything so that you can track your return on investment. And then we also have a series of 10 tips that we send out over about 14 days So it's about one almost every other day, which are very specific tips from circle management to community management to how to talk to people on Google+. And we promise that we will not spam you. You can opt into our newsletter after you're done if you want. That's your option. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, Ben, thank you so much. And thank you, great Zapster audience, all your comments and questions today, and thinking about what your plan is. Just for instance, Roxanne at the end says, I didn't change my mind about being Kirk. I think I'm between Kirk and Scotty, though. So, a little more refinement on the thinking. So thank you, Ben. Thank you, Zapsters, and we'll see you next week.